Hey everyone, and welcome back to the DC Films Podcast. This is episode 39. I know it's been a while since our last episode, and I apologize to anyone who's used to listen to us regularly. Obviously, if you guys didn't catch our last episode, or maybe you don't know what's going on, I had a little baby girl back in January, so she's been taking up the majority of my time. And just in general, it's like between everyone's schedules, it's always hard to find a day to get us all together for a podcast. But here we are today. A couple things before we get started, though. As of the 14th, it has officially been 2 years since we started the DC Films Podcast, and I just want to say to everyone who's been listening to us since the beginning, thank you all so much for supporting us and listening to us and engaging with us on social media or Tumblr, Twitter, wherever. It really means the world to us. And when I started talking about doing this podcast, I just wanted to do it because I wanted to have a place where it wasn't just me talking about the DCEU. Because I've been had my YouTube channel for a while now, but obviously for the most part it's just been me talking about these movies. And I wanted to be able to talk openly with people and get to know some people who I didn't really know previously and talk about these movies. And in that process, I made a lot of really, really great friends, and I love each and every one of them. I'm so glad that we've all come together and got to know each other through this. It really means the world to me to have them all in my life. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's listened to us, and thank you to everyone who's ever been part of the podcast. I love you all, and thank you.
I love you too, Nick.
Likewise.
On to the second thing I wanted to bring up. So with that being said, for those of you who maybe remember, who caught our first and only episode, last year we tried something new called the Bitter Geeks Podcast. Sorry, you might be hearing my daughter throughout this podcast, so if you hear any baby noises, that's her. So last year we attempted to start a new podcast where we could talk about things that weren't necessarily the DCEU, but things that, like, in general from pop culture we wanted to talk about. So we're going to be bringing that back. However, because of a lot of us and our feelings towards the DCEU in general and Warner Brothers and just us wanting to talk about more than just the DCEU, I'm announcing that this will be our last official episode of the DC Films Podcast. Moving forward, we're just going to be the Bitter Geeks, so nothing's really going to change. We're all still going to be here. Just that the series we've been doing, DC Films Podcast, is coming to an end. But that doesn't mean any of us are going anywhere. Again, like I said, we're all still going to be here. Still going to be ranting, still going to be yelling, still going to be getting upset and crying and laughing and everything you guys love about us that we do here. So yeah, that's what's going to be happening moving forward. So again, keep an eye out for the next episodes, because if you guys don't see DC Films Podcast anymore, that's going to be the reason why. So bear with us as we do this transition. It might take a little bit, but yeah, so that's want to let you guys know what's going on. And again, thank you to everyone who has listened to us over the last 2 years. Again, it really just means the world to me that so many of you have been listening to us since the beginning. And yeah, before I ramble on anymore, so we do have some people here other than me. If each one of you guys want to go around and introduce yourselves for the last time here for the DC Films Podcast.
My name is Al Speed. I am Speed of the Oppressed on Tumblr and Al Speed on Instagram.
Hi, I'm Jean. I'm Bad Activity on Tumblr, though I probably should change that now. But yeah, Bad Activity.
Hey everyone, my name is Artem, and I am Grey Kung Lao on Tumblr and Twitter.
Hey, I'm Danielle, and I am a Social Justice League on Tumblr, and I can never remember my Twitter name. It literally is right in front of me all the time. Is it The Bravest Heart?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you guys for being here. So in this last podcast, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. But the main thing I would like to discuss, because for those of you who probably know by now, or maybe don't know, so this past Sunday obviously was Father's Day, and Zach posted a couple of things. First of all, he shared an image of Cyborg and a scene from the movie, obviously from Justice League, that was cut. It would be a Cyborg, and once he connected to the mother box, he saw like a vision of himself and his parents. And of course, at the time, we're like, oh wow, like great, more content that was cut by Warner Brothers. Great, fantastic. But then would like to say he broke the internet with his next post. So in his next post, he literally posted our first look at the DCEU version of Darkseid, showing that it wasn't supposed to be Steppenwolf in those flashbacks in Justice League. It was supposed to be Darkseid before he officially became Darkseid. I know, Emily, I know, it's very upsetting. I'm upset too.
These are men fuck now.
So that obviously is a big thing. So the main topic of discussion mainly for this episode is going to be just the Snyder Cut, the possibility of it actually happening, what Zach's been posting, talk about the movement itself, and obviously some other big things happening in the DCEU fandom. You know, we have a new Batman, unfortunately. Nothing against Robert Pattinson, but we'll get into that later. And some other big stuff that's been going on, so we'll talk about those as they come up throughout the discussion. But the main thing is going to be the Snyder Cut, possibility of it, and overall our thoughts on it and what it all means for moving forward. So for you guys to kind of get started, obviously I already kind of started it. What did you guys think overall of what Zach posted on Sunday as far as, like, finally showing us Darkseid and what that meant and, like, how frustrated you were when you first saw it?
So, I don't know what's another person.
Okay. When my first thought was when he dropped all that stuff was just like, oh, I see why they can't release the Snyder Cut, because it's so completely different from what we got in that trash pile of a movie, and it's so different that, you know, I know, like, other movies like Aquaman have just tried to, like, sidestep any mention of Justice League because, like, you know, the plot made no sense and it's completely ridiculous. So, you know, but, like, in the interest of maintaining, like, some kind of coherent plot, you can't just have two movies out there with completely different storylines. And when you're still in the process of building one cohesive universe, you know, they're trying to build a sort of cohesive, sort of patchwork, sort of DC universe. And, you know, if they were to throw Justice League in there, they have to, like, you know, acknowledge it. I don't know, the Snyder Cut. But, you know, everything he releases just makes you really frustrated for, like, what we could have had and how much work clearly went into this movie to make sure it actually made sense. Oh my god, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm frustrated.
It's a really good point, though, because if we could, I mean, if Warner Brothers could just let go of this idea that they're going to have a cinematic universe after this debacle, then we could move forward and everything would be fine, and they could just make movies like usual. But we're so attached to the cinematic universe idea, and we could have had one, obviously, but that moment is past. Like, they screwed that up. It's over. Like, once you lose big chunks of your main cast, you're done. Like, that's the reason that the MCU dropped so much money into keeping Robert Downey Jr. where he was. Because if Robert Downey Jr. walked away from the project, the MCU is over. That's how it works, you know? I mean, like,
who's playing Mortal Kombat? I heard that Mortal Kombat ping sound. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Someone's being called out. Someone's being called out on the podcast.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, they need to move on from the cinematic universe, in my opinion. They need to let it go. If they want to make this work, sounds like it means that I'm not going to be a part of it, but, you know, like, if they want to live, if Warner Brothers wants to get through this and keep consistently making movies, instead of doing what they usually do, which is go stick their heads up their asses for 10 years so that they can, you know, pretend like nothing from the last decade ever happened. They're going to have to move on from the cinematic universe. They're going to have to let go of the idea that these movies are going to be cohesive, because you already lost two major players. You can't lose Superman and Batman and then be like, oh yeah, totally, it's definitely a cinematic universe. Sorry, Superman's everywhere. Like, everywhere. You can't just be like, oh, well, this is the cinematic universe minus Superman. Not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially when he started all this with Man of Steel.
Yeah, it's
No,
not gonna be easy. Yeah.
I just don't get it. Like, the more you think about it, it's like, what madness possessed them to get rid of Zack Snyder? Like, what absolute madness? Like, okay, like, immediate priorities, having to rewrite a complete movie that took, like, 3, 4, 5 years to plan and make, and just, like, throw it into a garbage pile right at the last minute. Number one, that's number one. And then, like, number two, it's like, he's the major draw for all these big name actors, all these perfect casting actors. Ben Affleck. Yeah, Ben Affleck is Batman. Like, the reason why these actors signed on to the project is because of Zack.
Yeah, and Adam
like,
especially.
Yeah, and, he's the mastermind behind the universe. He's the one who planned out all the stories. Like, and he was the one that Christopher Nolan chose to direct Man of Steel. So what? I know that, like, there was the critic backlash and whatever, but these movies were doing fine, like, in the box office. So, like, what on earth possessed them? Like, how stupid do you have to be?
Yeah, I think only Warner Brothers can look at their second movie, which was Batman v Superman, which made almost $1 billion at box office, and think that it was bad. Like, it was a second movie and it made almost $1 billion. How is that bad? How after this you decide to do what you did with Justice League? Like, it was, I think, 6 months until November back then, and during that time they had to reschedule all of the actors for these reshoots. I don't understand. Like, and how do you do your math? Like, obviously they wanted more money from Justice League, so which is one of the reasons why it's just 2 hours long. But how do you decide to spend above the original budget on reshoots and then expect an income from that? Like, how did this happen?
I mean, I've been saying since the beginning that it's like a situation where we can follow the money, but at this point it's sort of like, I have to sort of admit, like, it's got to be a popularity contest. It's got to be that, like, someone at Warner Brothers was just so tired of people on the internet and random geeks being like, oh, your movies suck, as if that shit ever matters, like, in the real world. But, like, someone must have, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, is that someone must have just, I don't know, had an annoying cousin who gave them shit about the MCU every single time they saw them, and they were like, oh, well, we can do that. Like, no, you can't. You can't please everyone. You can't win a popularity contest that people have already made up their minds on. You can't catch up with the MCU, and your idea that you can is ruining what good stuff you have. Like you don't want to do that. You don't want to get that clout, because that clout comes with shitty ass movies. Like 80% terrible films. Okay, if that's what you want.
No, okay, let's just straight evaluate the situation that Warner Brothers was in when they made that stupid ass decision. Look, the movie was 6 months away from release. A movie that had, at the very minimum taken 3 years of pre-production and production and post-production. It was 6 months away from release. And this was like a high budget, like full CGI movie. And you have a director who is familiar with working with the actors, who was the one to draw the actors in, on a franchise which was highly anticipated, even if people were just gonna hate on it, And yeah, sure, they want good critic reviews, whatever, and then people are hating on the movie, so they're scared that the movie won't do as well as they want it to. But it's 6 months away from release, and then suddenly they're like, they make a decision to cast a director who has a bad track record of, like, CGI movies. Like, honestly, okay, yeah, Joss Whedon has the Avengers under his belt, but you wouldn't say that like the CGI was amazing in them. I'm sorry, and to like shovel that in to 6 months for him to like not only just change up the movie or like change up the style, but to completely reinvent the movie from scratch. And so he has to do the equivalent of 3 to 5 years of work in 6 months with a director who is not really that cinematically competent. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Like, the more you think about it, the less sense it makes, the more ridiculous and arrogant it sounds of DC to have pulled that off. And not pull it off, have to oh my god, okay.
Yeah.
I just get angry.
And that's the thing, like, and here's the thing, like, I wish Warner Brothers would have gone back and looked at both Avengers movies he did before giving him Justice League, because here's the thing, both Avengers movies, the first and Age of Ultron, don't age well. The humor doesn't, the plots don't, the CGI doesn't, like, everything he did, like, do you hear anyone ever talking about, like, Avengers or Age of Ultron without talking about how much they hated the shit that he did in Age of Ultron? No. Like, the two supposedly biggest team-up movies or two of the biggest movies that Marvel's ever done, people, like, don't really talk about anymore. Other than the fact that, oh, Marvel did it first. Okay, well, what about the substance? What about the actual, like, the thing that made the movie, like, what it was? Like, the actual substance of the movie. What about that? Like, oh, well, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor on the same team are on the same screen together for the first time. Like, well,
that's the baffling thing, is that, like, they basically fired a director for Backlash and then hired a director who was historically fired for Backlash. Like he's not, like, he didn't just, like, quit after Age of Ultron. Like, let's be real. Joss was definitely dismissed from the MCU. Like, absolutely. Even if it was just, like, a soft dismissal where it was like, Joss, we're just gonna pass on your next project. Like, just, like, you just do over there. Like, he was definitely dismissed. The backlash for Age of Ultron was huge. Nobody seems to remember it. Everybody has some sort of fan amnesia about Age of Ultron, but the reaction to Age of Ultron was overwhelmingly negative and directly directed at Joss, like, in his direction. And they just and they're just taking the MCU's fucking cast-offs, and it's like, what, how can you think that this can work if you're just literally doing exactly the same thing? And honestly, like, I think Joss Whedon is a piece of shit, like, personally, professionally, across the board. But the fact that he was hired to scab on someone who was in the same position as he was in Age of Ultron, fighting for his stories, fighting for his babies, trying to make the movie work, even though the studio is being a piece of shit, is above the level of shit that I expected from him. Like, it's really, like, it's astoundingly bullshit. I can't even believe that he can't even see the irony. I mean, I believe that he can see the irony, and he just doesn't give a shit. Like he just was like, yeah, I absolutely want to direct a Justice League movie. I would just like to put that on my resume, because that's all he can fucking do at this point, because he did 5% of the fucking movie. He just scrambled it. He came in, he scrambled it. I mean, like, this is the thing, is that, like, Joss could have made a Justice League movie that looked halfway decent. I really do believe that. I think Joss could have made a Justice League movie that would have looked halfway decent. But it would have needed to be Joss's costumes, Joss's sets, Joss's story. It would have had to be all of his shit, because he only knows how to light and film his shit. And that becomes very apparent when you watch the raw footage from Justice League. You look at all that footage that nothing has been done to, because Joss doesn't know how. And it's just like, shoulders up shots with terrible lighting that's just supposed to make them look like plastic, action figures. And it doesn't work with the sets, it doesn't work with the costumes, it doesn't work with the character designs. It just doesn't work, because you're trying to mash together two styles that are so disparate that nothing was ever going to work about that film. It just wasn't. Like, there's nothing Joss could have done because it's not in his repertoire. He doesn't have the creative flexibility. He does one thing, he does it over and over and over again, and he can't stop because he can't even take criticism. Like, that's the entire thing that happened after Age of Ultron, was everybody was like, "Hey Joss, just checking in. A lot of this shit was fucked." And Joss was like, "Wow, everybody's really bullying me." And it was like, "Yep."
And here's the thing.
That's exactly how you stagnate your growth as an artist. Good job. Excellent. That's what I expected.
And here's the thing. Like, up until Zach's event recently, he never even commented on, like, really commented on the backlash of the movies or the Justice League situation or anything. Joss immediately was like, "Oh, no one likes my movie. Always me. Why everyone is against me? I don't understand." But it's like, dude, like, just own the fact that you made some mistakes. Even here's the thing. I have not seen Dark Phoenix. But even the director of that was like, "Hey, like," and I don't know all the drama with Dark Phoenix, but I will say a lot of it was not the director. But that director
Yeah, a lot of it was mostly Disney.
Yeah, so Simon Kinberg came out and said, "Hey guys, like, the low box office, everything, that's my bad. You know, like, I really wish it could have gone a different way, but, you know, whatever." Obviously, I imagine the studio told him to say that. But still, even, like, Joss would never, like, take the blame for anything he did, or even if he didn't do it.
Never, ever.
Yeah, he either wants the credit for doing it, or just wants to be silent. Period. And not give credit where credit's due.
That's the thing. That's the thing about the Father's Day incident. That's what we're calling it from here on out. The Father's Day incident with Mr. Snyder, who we love. That's the thing that just struck me as so, like Zach's been so quiet about this and so sort of like, "Oh yeah, that happened. Okay." Like, just sort of like, you know, whatever. And, you know, I think the greatest thing that he did was just like straight up go, you know, like someone said, like, if you put this on Twitter, it would have got traction. If you put this on Twitter, it would be self-promotion. If you put this on Twitter, you know, you would be actually, you know, making noise for this particular cut of the movie. And, like, that's what the Snyder Cut folks want him to do. But I mean, like, he's made it really clear he doesn't keep dropping these things on Vero because he wants everybody to keep making noise about the Snyder Cut. He drops this stuff on Vero because he's just an artist who wants to share his art with people who are into it. Like, that's it. That's all. He just said it's for the fans. Like, that's so... I mean, like, that's what we should want. That's what we should want out of the people who are in charge of these films. Like, this is the kind of stuff that's the attitude that we want. We're not going to get that from anybody else. And that's kind of where I get off. You know? That's the point where I'm like, okay, well, I think I'm done, because we're not going to get that attitude ever again. Like, Warner Brothers doesn't want to hire anyone with that attitude. The majority of people who we see who have experience in the genre, because apparently that's super fucking important to making a freaking superhero movie, all those people don't have that attitude. You know, we don't have anybody who could step in and be like, yeah, absolutely. You know, like, absolutely. Like, I care about the fans. I want to make something artistic. I want to make a good product that makes people who care very deeply about these characters happy. That's it. And we don't have anybody who feels that way. We don't have anybody out there who really, like, who really is on the radar of these big studios, and who also, like, does this. And that's half the reason that Zach was fired, was because they're difficult to work with. They're not going to take, you know, they're not going to take direction the way that actors take direction, because they're the fucking director and they shouldn't have to. You know, like, they're going to come in and they're going to have opinions on what should happen and what shouldn't happen. And studios don't want that anymore. They just want director puppets, people who look good in front of the camera and can kind of explain what happened. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, that these are no longer director-driven films. These are studio-made films.
Yeah. Oh, can I just say one more thing though?
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of wanted to talk about the suspicious lack of a lot of cyborg scenes in the Justice League movie, and how it sort of feels like. I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions going on from this point, but it does strike me as a little strange that most of the scenes that were taken out were directly correlated with either Cyborg or his family, and it just makes me wonder, like, of all the scenes that you could have cut for the most part, why would you cut most of Cyborg's scenes? These integral scenes that are important to his character, with his mother, with his father, with the whole sacrifice. I don't know. Oh yeah, which brings attention to that one image, the two images that Zack Snyder dropped. One with Cyborg reaching out to his father, who we apparently see sacrifice himself, and then we get another image of Cyborg himself crying, crying literal tears. And I feel like that's a scene that should have stayed in the movie. It would have been so integral to his character. But instead of that, we got bullshit racial tension and just a whole bunch of other useless scenes that don't really do Cyborg any justice.
Yeah. And they also cut Iris West, who was supposed to be portrayed by
they did cut Iris West, played by a black.
And I'm wondering what the fucking correlation is there. I don't think anybody needs any help figuring what the connection between those two characters is. Like, come on. And I think there's absolutely a political element here. There's absolutely people are responding to the dominant political forces in this country right now, and I don't think it's a huge leap to say maybe Warner Brothers sat down and they went, oh my god, why did Zack Snyder make a Cyborg movie? This is supposed to be a Justice League movie. Where's Batman? Where's Superman? And Zack was like, Cyborg's the most compelling character in this particular installment. Everybody else is going to get their moment. It seems like a great deal of Justice League was the Cyborg movie. I mean, like, we were prepared for that before it even came out, but I mean, that would explain why Ray Fisher is just, like, super fixated on the Snyder Cut, because it's his best work. It's everything. It's where he did all of this work, and all of this work is thrown directly in the trash.
Yeah.
Presumably because we have a black superhero, and he's not Mr. Black Man.
And here's the thing, and I remember, like, it was after Black Panther came out, and I remember I can't remember who it was, someone told me, like, if the Cyborg movie comes out, y'all better support it like you supported Black Panther. And I remember people being like, oh, well, he's not, like, a primarily important black character, so why should we care? Or it's DC, so why should we care?
Like, neither was Black Panther, though, before he actually came out with the movie.
How does every single person forget that all of these Marvel characters that we're so fixated on now were completely obscure and probably the stupidest characters that Marvel has available? Like, if we're gonna be like totally transparent, nobody like they were all Aquaman, all of them. I mean, I don't even think they had the clout Aquaman had before the MCU started. And, like, everybody's pretending like, oh yeah, well, they just took, like, like Iron Man is the center of the Marvel universe. Fuck no, he's not. He hasn't been ever. Who the like, honestly, half the people when the MCU started were like, who the fuck is Iron Man? Like, what? What's going on? Like, nobody knew what the fuck was going on. They did a great job hyping up these minor characters, but Warner Brothers can't seem to take the hint that, like, I don't know, maybe make a fucking Nightwing movie. Like take some folks who haven't been through the ringer 100 times, haven't been adapted 100 times. I don't know. Like,
I mean, that's what DC Universe is actually doing.
Yes. And brilliant.
And you're doing good. You're doing great.
Well, they're doing great up until the canceled Swan Thing after one episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh no.
Wait, the what? I'm sorry, I haven't been keeping up.
So yeah, they canceled Swan Thing after the first episode premiered.
What happened in the Swamp Thing?
WB happened.
What? I thought it was like look good, horny stuff, content. What happened?
Well, initially some BS report came out saying like, oh, Warner Brothers didn't get like a tax break, so like, oh, well, this show's too expensive to make. But like, really, everyone involved was like, no, that's not the case. It has nothing to do with that. And even James Wan, who was like is an executive producer on the show, helped get the show off the ground, was like, I don't know why they canceled it.
They got a Swamp Thing. They got a Swamp Thing show, and they literally looked at it and said, "Why doesn't this look like The Flash?"
Exactly, that's exactly what happened.
Good Lord! Like, how stupid can you be? I don't know what How do these people keep their jobs? This is the thing. It's like how do you keep your job like this? How? In what way is this making any money for the studio? Making any sense for anything? They're gonna sabotage DC Universe, and honestly, I think DC Universe had a chance there for a second. It really did, and I was super skeptical. I was like, wow, a DC streaming service, that's the stupidest shit you could have done. And then they actually pulled some shit out that was kind of interesting, and they got me on board. Like, they got my money.
Doom Patrol.
We gotta talk about Doom. We gotta like have a whole like episode for Doom Patrol or something.
We really do. I mean, I know we kind of went off.
There's too much to unpack.
I know we all kind of like went off on it last episode, but like seriously, Doom Patrol is like honestly one of the best things DC has ever done. And here's the thing: like if you thought Legend of Tomorrow was kooky and weird, you don't even know what the fuck like Doom Patrol is. Like it's. I don't want to get too far off tangent. But
I just like explain the donkey thing to everybody, like in order to give them like a threshold. I'm like, here's the thing, here's how weird it is, and then explain the entire scenario with the donkey, and everybody's like, sorry, what? I'm like, yep, that's comic books. It's absolutely that's how comic book adaptations look sometimes, because that's actually what reading a comic book is like. You're like, what the fuck, all the time. And if you like that feeling, watch Doom Patrol, everyone who's listening.
And it's funny because I remember, so I just did my review for Doom Patrol for Comic Book Debate, and I spent a majority of it just talking about the character work. I couldn't even really like delve into the weirdness, because I feel like the weirdness would turn people off. So I just said, if you are really into like good, like amazing character work, this is a great show for you to watch. Because obviously it's like one of the weirdest fucking shows you'll ever watch in your life. But also, like I said, it has some of the greatest character work in all of superhero television, or some of like 2019 television period. Like Matt Bomer, Brendan Fraser, like the work that they do. Granted, a lot of it is voice work, but they do come in occasionally for their physical performances. But the work they did on this show was fantastic. And Diane Guerrero's Crazy Jane, also fantastic. Everyone in this show, even the guy, Joyvan Wade, or I might be butchering his name, but the guy that got to play Cyborg, I was a little trepidatious because of the whole, like, I wanted to see Ray Fisher as Cyborg, and they're giving more spotlight to a different version of Cyborg. He did a really good job of playing Cyborg in this show, too. In a show where, like, I don't think Cyborg has ever really been a part of the Doom Patrol ever, but making his story...
Nah, he wasn't.
Yeah, but making him a part of this story, honestly, like, I'm glad he got to see a version of Cyborg. I'm glad I got to see some light of day, because Cyborg as a character, I think, deserves it. He's honestly one of the most interesting characters in all of comics right now, I think, and he doesn't get nearly the amount of recognition that he should. And if it's going to be on a show like Doom Patrol, I'm glad it is, because the character work with him was really great, too. I mean... Yeah.
I think that my favorite character out of all of them is definitely Larry. Like, if I'm gonna be honest, I think Larry Trainor had the most in-depth character development out of all the characters.
I went back and forth on Larry until Danny the Street, and then I was just weeping constantly, just like nothing but weeping. Now every time I see him, I just start crying. Like, it's really bad. Like, the funny parts, even, like, anything Larry's doing, I'm just looking at him like, and, so, I mean, I don't know. I think if I met Matt Bomber at this point, I would probably have a serious problem, and just like dissolve in a puddle at his feet and be like, "Hi, thank you." I'd
cry and embrace him and tell him, "You deserve so much better." Because he played such a compelling character that every time I saw him on screen, I'm like, "That's my boy. I want him to be happy."
Yeah. And it's funny, because I remember, like, for years, everyone, like, before Henry was cast, like, wanted him to play Superman, too. And, like, I know, like, he's voiced Superman in that one animated movie and stuff, and, like, he might do a good Superman, but, like, the work he did with Negative Man and Larry was so, like, it was so well done. Like...
I think his character is a much better fit for him because, like, the lack of purity gives him sort of like a larger range to work with. Like, he definitely has sort of like, he gets to play Larry is an asshole. Larry is very selfish. Larry is insecure. Larry as, you know, like, he gets to play, like, many different notes. Whereas, like, a Superman performance is more nuanced because it's many different notes all inside of sort of, like, one note. Because Clark is just sort of, like, you know, like baseline good boy and then other stuff on top. So I don't know. I was always kind of skeptical. I think he's brilliant, and I think we've been waiting for the right role for him in this genre, and I'm super excited that he found a really great one. But I was always super skeptical about, like, the potential for him to play Superman. Unless he wants to do so in 10 years, because anybody who's playing old Superman is going to be my new number one.
Also, I think part of the reason why a lot of people want to fan cast him too is because him and Henry kind of sort of look alike.
Basically.
But the long story short, if you're not watching Doom Patrol, watch it and just learn to love the absolute batshit craziness of it. And we promise you won't be disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. I loved Cliff and Jane's relationship just for how, I guess, not unsettling, but just more how rocky it is. I guess if I could talk about that for like a second.
Oh yeah, go ahead, since we're already off tangent anyway.
So, with Cliff and Jane, what I liked about their relationship the most is how, you know, they play off each other. You know, Cliff lives in this very toxic masculine sort of personality where I guess he just feels like everything is, you know, if something goes wrong, he usually blames himself for it, you know, and he tries to put his problems on other people so that he can try to make himself look a little more, to regain a little bit of dignity. What I like about his relationship with Jane is that I think he sees him more as a surrogate daughter rather than just a friend or anything like that. And I think Jane reacts negatively to this because she knows that he only sees her as another daughter to fill that empty hole in his heart. But on Jane's perspective, she doesn't like him because not only because he's a man and she doesn't really trust men all that much, but also because she doesn't want to be seen as like a surrogate daughter to anybody due to her own tragic past with her father. And so they kind of reach this sort of middle ground where they have some form of respect for one another, but not to any sort of buddy, friendly sort of thing. And I like that it's, you know, an imperfect friendship that doesn't always work out well, because I think it really does reflect, you know, a real life scenario of two people who deal with those similar situations.
Sorry, I'm in the middle of diaper duty. You guys can go ahead and keep talking.
I just wanted to roll back to the picture of that Zack Snyder posted about Cyborg seeing his family whole again. Have you read? He commented on how exactly that scene was supposed to happen. So when Superman and Cyborg were trying to physically divide mother boxes, it was supposed to kill both of them, because you can't stop unity like that. So the Flash was supposed to travel back in time, like a few moments before that happens, and help Cyborg tap into mother boxes, where inside of it he was supposed to stop unity from inside, and there he was meant to be tempted with the possibility of him becoming whole again, human again, and have his family back.
Like that possibility, like that constantly changing, that time travel mechanic is like so important, because I think we can kind of see there's like an evolution of the story. Like Zack definitely at that fan event sort of spit out his first idea for what Justice League was going to be in terms of story, and I think a lot of us in the fandom, a lot of Superman fans were like kind of horrified by like what his original plan was. But we can see like that the Justice League story evolved throughout the filmmaking, and maybe some of that was because of like annoying studio interference, but like some of that is just like the nature of creativity, where you get in there and you're like, wow, gee, there's really no way that I can like threaten to kill or actually kill Lois Lane without being super misogynist. Like there's no way it carries off without it being like super super ugly on screen. So let's actually just, you know, pivot towards something different. And the thing is I think that's why so many of the ideas of what happened in Justice League and the way Justice League was are so different and so confusing and so conflicting, is because we are looking at a movie that evolved over time. We are looking at a story that moved in a certain direction, and it's not necessarily like a lot of the ideas that we've been hearing is stuff that didn't necessarily even make it onto film. And I think that that's something that people aren't taking into account when we're talking about these things. We're just saying like, oh well, Zack was going to do this, so I'm just going to discount the whole Snyder Cut. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I have trust for anybody who's in it for the fans, who thinks about the fans, who cares about their social impact. And I think Zack is one of those folks. I think Zack really cares about the impact. He cares about the fans. He cares about not hurting anybody. And I think, you know...
yeah, I know. I mean, if you're gonna pick a director with a track record of saying things that make people jump to conclusions, but like you can trust him to not actually make that mistake.
Yes!
Like, Zack Snyder's your guy. He
is Mr. Foot in his mouth. Mr. Foot in his mouth. Oh my god. He scared the shit out of me before Batman vs. Superman. I'll never forget it, because like my physical, like my being jumps out of my physical body. And I was like, gee, I'm like floating 10 feet above my head, going, oh my god, it's gonna happen. Zack Snyder is gonna make Batman beat the shit out of Superman to teach him a lesson. Jesus fucking Christ. This is my worst goddamn nightmare. I can't think of anything he could do that's worse. And like, that's how it sounded. When he was promoting that movie, he was doing the wrong fucking thing. He was saying things that were scaring the crap out of everybody and setting fanboys up to think that they were gonna watch Batman beat Superman up. And that's their fucking dream. That's the dream. That's the crazy misogynist Batman obsessed hardcore dream pie in the sky bullshit. That's what they wanted at a Batman vs. Superman, and that's exactly the opposite of what they got. And half of that is why they were so pissed off, is because
Danielle, would you call Batman v Superman Sucker Punch 2?
I mean, in terms of intention, in terms of like luring everybody into the theater in order to explicitly punch the fandom in the face and be like, do better, fuck you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
Zack Snyder is my #1 favorite director in terms of bullying misogyny.
And he's really good at it. Super good.
I 100% support this bullying. Thanks.
They need it. It's very important. It's good work.
And here's the thing. Why is every couple years or so we get some stupid person being like, why would Zack Snyder let Superman destroy someone's livelihood in Man of Steel? Defending the fucking
that he deserves
the guy in the
sorry.
bar.
I feel absolutely vindicated.
Where is the male tears brigade? Honestly, where is the male tears brigade when this kind of shit happens? I cannot believe that they just blithely ignore all this stupid shit that comes out about Man of Steel every couple of years when you're actually looking at one of the most feminist, now one of the most, not the most, because the most feminist film of the genre is probably Into the Spider-Verse, but one of the most feminist films in the genre, and you can't get off your ass and take out your fucking male tears mug and have a conversation with some idiots about it for 5 seconds. Like, you were there for Captain Marvel, you were there for Fury Road, you were there for all these conversations. Why the fuck can't you just take a minute and be like, hey, it's totally cool to commit violence on inanimate objects when they belong to misogynists. It's totally cool to react to sexual assault by destroying inanimate objects. It's an inanimate object. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They're never going to come out for Snyder because it's not trendy. It doesn't get hits. It doesn't get them Twitter clout. And that's what it's all about now. It doesn't have anything to do with justice, doesn't have anything to do with praxis, doesn't have anything to do with feminism. It has everything to do with how much everybody is going to like this particular comment. And when you get to that point, it's not feminism anymore. It's just masturbation.
Yeah. It's like, I saw the comparison how, I think it's comic book resources or some site, they made these articles about Endgame, how directors of Endgame explain this, explain that, and they explain why this happened, what didn't happen, etc. And one of the articles also said, Zack Snyder explaining Batman v Superman proves why it's a bad movie. Like, wow. Bias.
God. No,
It's a mess. Nobody can be relied on anymore.
Yeah. Speaking of Man of Steel,
there's no point engaging with all this because at this point I feel like we're just being openly baited. You know, we're being baited into a fight about this every time they mock the DCEU. People will be like, oh look, DC fans are so easily triggered. I'm like, oh my god.
But here's the thing.
I mean, honestly, what it is they want to control the narrative for the long term because they know that eventually enough people are going to see Batman vs Superman and realize that it's one of the best movies that's ever been made in the genre, and that it does something unique and interesting, and that it has a huge ripple effect on the entire genre. We're going to realize that, and they're terrified that the long term is going to make them look stupid. They're terrified that they're not going to be the tastemakers here, because if they're not the tastemakers, then they have absolutely zero clout, because that's all they know how to do. All they know how to do is be like, this is bad, this is good. Congrats.
And here's the thing. What's going to have longer lasting impact anyway? Like I mentioned earlier, the team-up movie that no one talks about anymore, or one of the most talked about one of the most talked about films of the last 30 years. Like, good or bad, Batman v Superman is still talked about to this day. People still want to comment on it.
It's that whole, it's that whole who drops into every single fucking conversation.
Yeah. I mean, Endgame was released this year, and all it's became now is memes with Thanos, and that's it.
I mean, here's the thing. I enjoyed Endgame, but give it 5-10 years. I don't know if it's really gonna have that much holding power. As far as are people really still gonna be talking about it?
They didn't do anything. There's nothing shocking in that film. There's nothing surprising in that film. Everything that happens in that film is either running counter to people's known expectations, like things that make you go, oh wait, that seems like the wrong ending, or it's shit that we already knew was gonna happen anyway. Like, who didn't know that Spider-Man was coming back?
Wait, what? Spider-Man came back?
Like, the only thing that surprised me about that film was Black Widow dying.
Sorry, I had spoilers if you haven't seen Endgame, but which I.
Oh, God. I mean, it's been out for a while now. I'm pretty sure a lot of people should have seen it.
Spoilers, but I'm sorry, who cares?
Oh. Okay, I think
we all knew they were gonna dump ScarJo. She's a huge liability at this point. Like it's basically a joke. It's not even like we're like coming out against whitewashing or racism or anything like that.
Yes.
We're just like Scarlett Johansson, ba-bum bum. Like it's not even something that we take seriously anymore.
And here's the thing: they killed her off by having a competition with Hawkeye as to who should die.
It was the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Like Battle of the Useless Characters.
I mean, at least I can't get mad at these movies anymore because they've totally jumped the shark. It's like watching Twilight over and over again. I'm like, this is kind of amusing. Like, it's very, I'm just sitting around waiting for the AntMan parts because at least those are genuinely funny.
Yeah.
But Paul, say what you want about the films. Paul Rudd is honestly one of the last shining bits of the MCU that isn't corrupted by the MCU.
You can't make me hate Paul Rudd. It's impossible. I watched Clueless 600 million times. I'm in love with him. We're married.
Yes!
I don't know. I just someone let Paul Rudd know that I've got his back for eternity. It's bad. It's probably gonna age poorly, but yeah, there's nothing that can dislodge him from my heart.
Oh my god.
And here's the thing too, obviously I started by saying this, but seriously, I rewatched Ant-Man and the Wasp not too long ago because I was doing a whole MCU rewatch thing. It still baffles me that he's playing a superhero because all I see, and it's nothing against him, but all I see is Paul Rudd. But he's one of those few actors where that's not a bad thing. You're
like, oh, weird, Paul is here. Is he pretending to be Ant-Man again? Okay, sure. I'll buy that. Yeah, Paul, you're in an Ant-Man costume. That's fun. That's basically how... Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. That's why you make Paul Rudd Ant-Man and not Iron Man. Because, it doesn't distract from Ant-Man because Ant-Man is a ridiculous concept. It can be totally silly constantly and not be an issue. I mean, he's best friends with ants. He's riding an ant and shit. So we're fine. And
he names them with puns too, like Anthony or.
He's the dad of superheroes.
literally
dad jokes. It's very important. Yeah. I can't be mad at Paul. I'm incapable. I hated the first Ant-Man. I still hate the first Ant-Man, but
have you seen the second one?
Paul Rudd can get it. He can do whatever he wants.
Have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp?
We did see it, and I didn't hate it all that much. I hated it a little. There were parts that I hated. And I think, basically, the way the villain was handled was fucking stupid, and I was mad about it the whole time. But beyond that, not so much.
There was a villain?
Yeah, somewhere in there, I think.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I fell asleep during that movie.
And I don't hate the movie, but that's the movie that Lawrence Fishburne left the DCEU for.
Oh yeah, I was so pissed about that. That's the movie you left?
To do this boring shit, honestly, to do this real boring shit with the villain.
Here's the thing.
Think about how perfectly scripted his lines were in Terry White. Every single line was absolute gold. And then this, really, is it really worth it? How big was that?
I mean, did they tell you you were gonna be a superhero in the movie? Because his character does become a superhero, but not anytime soon.
Does he?
Yeah, I'm sure that he's like invested in that like future with the MCU or whatever, but it's like that's not how you become iconic, dude. Like obviously nobody in that franchise has any opportunity to become iconic beyond the like the Chris's. And
honestly, even like Chris Hemsworth, like, does he really have that big of a career outside of Thor? Like, honestly,
I mean, based on his Men in Black film, I guess.
Oh, I can't talk about it. It hurts so much.
Was it that
Wait,
bad?
what? I haven't watched it yet. Tell me.
I haven't seen it, honestly. I just can't. I can't bring myself to see it because I love the Men in Black. I love the Men in Black series so much.
I literally decided to not.
Of this film
It
looks so terrible. It just looks so bad. Why are we pretending, by the way, and this is going into Bitter Geeks territory, so I'm really sorry, but why are we pretending, by the way, that having a female Man in Black is a new fucking thing when it was in the first goddamn movie? Can someone please explain that to me? Because I'm so mad about it, I can't even speak. Like, really? What the actual fuck? Like, did you watch the first movie or not? Is this a new thing where we just make sequels to films and not watch the first fucking movie? Because they're like, oh, well, some Men in Black are women. And I'm like, fuck you. Half the Men in Black are women. That's the whole thing. It's just a word, you stupid assholes. It's black. It's Men in Black because it's an actual pop cultural thing. It's an actual urban legend from real life. Like, the Men in Black were a thing that I was obsessed with in, like, 7th grade. I know shit about the Men in Black. Like, it's an awesome parody of a really stupid concept. Like, but the Men in Black are not men. You're stupid. Like, why the first movie has a woman in black. The first movie is about inducting a woman in black. What is wrong with you? Did you not watch it? Oh, fucking brilliant. That movie is life and energy and breath. It is the awesomest shit. Like, that movie is so fucking good. And I just can't even believe they did this. Like, and there have been some truly bad moments in Men in Black history. But here's the thing: nothing has sabotaged the franchise. This shit, I feel it. I feel it in my bones. I'm watching these previews and I'm like, wow, you guys are killing it. You guys are actually destroying a franchise.
See, here's the
For
thing.
what?
It's like they took everything from Thor Ragnarok, like the two actors, and tried to just like, hey, look, it's Thor and Valkyrie in the Men in Black.
God, for real. Oh my god. And it's exhausting, and it's just like, what? Men in Black was so cute, you guys. Do you guys not remember there was like a cute buddy movie about two men learning to love each other?
Oh,
and then
I love
grew up
Men in
loving
Black.
this movie. I grew up loving the first one, the second one.
so soft.
And here's the thing, even though, like, Josh Brolin, aside from him being an abusive asshole, the third Men in Black, I still enjoy. Everyone told me that it was the worst fucking movie ever. I still enjoyed it. Like, Will Smith still delivered. Like,
I'm sorry, if you can't enjoy Men in Black 3, then I don't think that you actually enjoy the franchise. That's what I think. I just feel that way. Like, I think the first Men in Black, nobody's ever going to exceed it. It was a beautiful, weird, amazing, random thing that happened to us. It was a strike of lightning, and I think that's beautiful about it. But like, if you didn't like the successive movies, then I think that you really were never on board. I think you were here for, like, Will Smith with a big-ass gun. It's not about Will Smith with a big-ass gun. It's about soft men with soft feet fighting aliens. Super cute. I, like, don't understand what you didn't understand about the Men in Black series, but 3 is on par. 3 is right where it's supposed to be. 3 knows exactly what it is.
I agree. I love, like, to me,
Alright.
that perfectly wrapped up the movies for me. Like, if that was gonna be the end, I was like, you know what, that's perfectly fine. Like, if that's how you're gonna do it, like, that made me happy. And then, like, everyone in the world was like, you must be stupid if you like Men in Black 3. I'm like, you must be stupid because you're fucking stupid.
What's the thing about these, like, stupid reboot sequels that are like, haha, psych, the original was actually bad. Like, how can you make a fucking sequel that literally has so much derision for the original film? And that's the thing, is that the only thing that made it into the trailers about this new movie was that it seems like the people who made it hated Men in Black. Okay, make something else then. Get the fuck off my Men in Black. Get out of here. This is my place, like literally. And this is the thing. This is the thing. I'm not as mad as I maybe could be about The Last Jedi, folks. The people who are super pissed about The Last Jedi. You kind of have a right to be, because it seems like someone came in and said, Star Wars is stupid. Here's a better version. Fuck you, dude. We're here. And like literally, why are we doing this now? Like, has irony just turned in on itself to the point where it's open derision for everything that ever was cool?
I think this is like the worst mentality to come with when you decide to make a reboot or retell some old story, remake a movie. Like, one of my most favorite things that Zack Snyder ever said about Man of Steel is that we pretended there was no live-action Superman so we could make Man of Steel. This is the approach that should be. You don't compete with the original. You create something new based on the original and tell your own story, how you would have seen that universe from your perspective.
And here's
honestly, given that metric, I'm wondering if Zack had made a shitty movie with a bunch of in-jokes about how the actual original Reeves films were actually bad, if Man of Steel would have actually been successful. That makes me wonder.
Well, because if here's my whole thing is that, like, Zack Snyder said all that, but he never goes on to ever disrespect what Donner and Christopher Reeve did with the character. If anything, if you look at Man of Steel, there's a lot of Easter eggs and homages to Christopher Reeve. Hell, even to Smallville. Like, he never once says, "Oh, fuck you" to the other stuff. Here's mine. And I feel like so much of, like, modern, like, film, like, reboot sequels, like, so many of them do that today. We're just like, oh my god, like, the ones before this, weren't those fucking terrible? Ha ha ha. Here's our amazing one that's actually going to be terrible.
What's wild is that the same people who don't think The Last Jedi is taking a shit on Star Wars as a whole think that that's what Zack Snyder is doing with the legacy of the Donner films, and it doesn't make any sense to me, because, like, there's nothing but respect there. It's different, and if the audacity to make something different without literally just being like, yeah, haha, Superman's dumb, let's make a movie, like, unless if that's being taken as disrespect toward people who came before, we're literally just deciding that everything needs to be a cycle of the same fucking thing over and over and over again, unless it's a joke, unless it's comedy. And, like...
Well, I mean, that is how the movie industry is right now. Like, of all the movies, like, what percentage of them do you think are sequels, you know?
But the thing is that there's like the tradition of a sequel, which is an earnest attempt to recapture what was so popular about the first movie, which is why a lot of sequels have historically failed. And then there's this new approach to a sequel that's like, oh well, that's the thing too, is I think it's all insecurity, because it's like, oh well, we can't fail because we really didn't try.
Speaking of which, did you guys ever see what Donner said about Man of Steel before he passed away?
But wait, Donner isn't dead, is he?
Well, no. Didn't he pass away?
I don't think he did. I think Richard Donner's still alive.
Oh, is he? Wow.
Let me look that up, because either way, I feel like we're gonna feel bad about this.
I'm Googling it, because I have no idea if Richard Donner is alive.
I feel like he is. I feel like it would have been big if it, you know, like nerds would still be talking about it and almost like been like, oh well, Donner's dead, so Zack Snyder should never make Superman movies again. So, like, that sort of thing would have been said. Oh no, he's still alive. Oops.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
We love you, Richard. Don't be mad. I'm so sorry.
But before Man of Steel came out, Richard Donner actually got into an interview with MTV when they asked about how he felt.
So, like, if you guys got time, I could read it verbatim.
Oh no, yeah, that's fine. I mean, it helps with the conversation to know exactly how he felt.
Yeah. So basically, MTV asked, "What do you think about the upcoming reboot of the Superman franchise and the new lead Henry Cavill?" Donner replied, "It's going to be really tough on this guy, but he's a wonderful actor and he has a great director working with him. I think they'll do a sensational job because I truly believe their dedication to the project is honest. That film that they're making, they believe in it, and that's all you need. A good director and to believe in your project. You can't ask for more." So then MTV goes on to say, "Do you have any advice for the new Superman Man of Steel team? What would you tell Zack Snyder to bring to the character?" And Donner said, "The only advice I have is to tell them good luck and go make a good damn movie. They're filmmakers and they wouldn't be doing this or getting this job if they weren't well qualified to do it. I look to them to show me something new and something different and totally respect what they do. I don't think I can help them in any way except by patting them on the shoulder and wishing them all the luck in the world. In this business today, there are so many bright, quick-witted, talented young people coming up that all I can do is sit back and watch them and wish them luck."
My heart hurts.
Okay, I'm crying. Alright, that's happening. Fucking hell.
I'm having a bunch of weepy nerds here right now.
I mean, here's the thing, like, I want to believe that came from the heart, but at the same time, I feel like before the movie comes out, I imagine Warner Brothers went to Richard Donner and said, "Hey, we don't want any bad press before this movie comes out. You still can kind of work with us, so don't say anything negative." But
Here's the thing though, and if you look back at the history of these films coming out, what Donner's speaking on is actually experience in having people negatively receive his work. And that's the thing that I think people don't get. He's looking at it and he's having the same exact experience. I mean, not the same exact, because Warner Brothers has apparently gotten so much worse over time.
Yeah.
But he's having a very similar experience to the one that Donner actually had. And he's looking at it, he's just saying, honestly, what I hear in the subtext there is, this is going to be a shit show. I mean, honestly, because knowing the shit they put Donner through, knowing the shit that they put that cast through, knowing the shitty movies that came after his original Superman, like, this man was fucking committed. Like, this man was so committed to making an earnest film, to making a film that rung true, to making a film that was worthy of the character. And like, for him to come out and just basically say, like, what I hear when he's saying that shit is, like, the subtext there is, like, nothing's going to make everyone happy. And I wish Warner Brothers could fucking hear that, because he's the guy who knows it for sure. Like, people love his movies, but they didn't. That's the thing. People love the Donner films, but that's now. And I'm dreading the day that everyone's just like, "Oh man, hey, Zack Snyder, that's the last Superman movie you should have made," and I'm gonna fucking kill that person in the face because I lived through this bullshit. And, like, I can't, I think they're looking at it from really similar perspectives, and I think it's really powerful for Donner to come out and just be like, what you need is a really, really good intention. What Snyder has is a really, really good intention. I can't imagine that they didn't have any conversations with this man before they began filming. I'm imagining that he's met Henry Cavill because Henry has tried out for Superman a number of different projects.
Oh yeah.
And the idea that he wasn't in some way consulting on Singer's film is ridiculous, because Singer's film is basically just like one big long French kiss to the Donner films. That was almost Henry. I just think, like, I see the subtext there, and I think that it's really powerful for him to come out and just be like, good luck. it's gonna be super terrible and hard. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I think that's making a Superman movie. I think it's inescapable. I think that's what it is now. Is making a Superman movie is going to be a bunch of assholes telling you the right way to make your movie and just ignoring all the noise and being like, you know, we're here to make a really great product. It doesn't fucking matter what anybody says. And Warner Brothers totally was never on board with that. Ever. It's very obvious they were never on board with that.
I mean, like, Zack needed the help of Christopher Nolan in order to make this movie the way he wanted it to. And Christopher Nolan was able to protect him because of the success of the Dark Knight series.
Exactly, and the thing is that, like, they should have looked at the success of the Dark Knight series and figured out that means they should just butt the fuck out. Like, honestly. Like, we're all just living in an alternate fucking universe from 10 years ago, pretending like none of this shit happened, when we're literally looking at when Warner Brothers was killing the box office. Last time that DC Films was killing the box office was when Nolan was in charge of it, and he was making crazy, cracked out movies. He was making movies that had nothing to do with fucking canon. He was making movies that were like, what if Batman but realism? Like, they were really weird fucking takes. They really were. And everyone took them totally seriously. Nobody had a problem with them. And literally, they were like phenomenons. Like the number of Jokers that you saw every Halloween, the number of Heath Ledger Jokers you saw every Halloween was like to the point where it was like, oh my god, not again. Just go away. Like, you know, like you got that cultural saturation to the point of annoyed, to the point of this is a joke. Like, that's what you want in terms of cultural impact, and they're pretending like it was a joke from the beginning. Hell no. It just got to the point where it was so ubiquitous that everyone was like, oh my god, this fucking shit again. Like, that's what you want. It's ridiculous. How much money is a fucking filmmaker gotta make?
I know.
Apparently $1 billion after Endgame.
And here's the thing, like, Warner Brothers, like, they kept, like, lying to themselves and saying, like, oh, we're still a director-driven studio. Like, we always let our director do whatever they want, unless it's a property that we own, in which case they aren't allowed to do anything creatively. Like, seriously, it was after the Dark Knight movies, and after Man of Steel, that they were, like, so, like, afraid of doing anything creatively with an established property. Like, when it came to live action, and, like, here, and what baffled me, you can say it's because it's animation, it has no previous ties to, like, the DCEU or anything, but, like, look at, like, Lego Batman. Look at what that movie accomplishes, and just, like, being able to go wherever the fuck it wants with Batman. That version of Batman is nowhere to be seen in almost any version of Batman. But it is almost like quintessential Batman at the same time. People can learn to accept that, and Warner Brothers was hands off with that because it's an animated movie. Why can't they treat live action in the same way?
It's like the animated universe has already built up most of its stuff from the characters, and it even somehow tied in, like, that whole Flashpoint animated movie with their current animated universe. Like, those two events are canon to each other, and they did it so seamlessly. So it just feels odd that the animated movies can do it so well, but yet Warner Brothers can't seem to get the same thing to happen to their live action.
I honestly don't think it's that odd, though, because I think that the big thing here, that the big elephant in the room when it comes to making a cinematic universe work, is having respect for the creatives. In an animated universe, in order to make things fluid, you don't have to have any respect for anybody. You could theoretically fire every single person on an animated film and make another animated film in that universe and not have any respect for anything that came before, and it would be fine. Like, but that's the thing. They have to have respect. They have to have respect for, like, all of the people in that live action franchise, and they don't. Like, that's the thing. They want every single person in those films to feel replaceable, and that's a problem. You can't let them feel replaceable. Like, the MCU does the same fucking shit. That's why they can't keep any of their female actresses over a certain age. They can't do it because, like, those women get too smart, and those women are like, hey, can I have some more money? It looks like Robert Downey Jr. has $1 million, billion, $trillion. Can I have 3 more? And they're like, oh no, like, why would you want 3 more? You're just, and then it's like, okay, and they walk, and then those parts of the cinematic universe fall apart. Like, why do you think Thor went to complete shit? Like, it was from neglect. Because they didn't want to invest in that. They didn't want to invest in that corner, and they didn't want to respect the creatives. And that's the same thing that's happened. They had no respect for Ben. They had no respect for Henry. They don't respect any of these actors, and the crazy thing is in the DCEU, all of these actors are incredible. You're dealing with people who have won multiple awards. You're dealing with people who are the best in the business. You're dealing with people who are worth the money, who are worth the time and the effort, and worth the ass kissing. And they're not even willing to kiss ass. They're like, oh no, everybody's replaceable. I'm sorry, Lois fucking Lane isn't replaceable. Superman isn't replaceable. You can't just cast a new fucking Superman and think that everybody's just gonna be like, oh well, yeah, now, like, that's Superman now. Like, I'm sorry, that's not how it works in live action. Like, it takes a lot of time and effort to get someone to buy someone as Superman in the first place. It's not a little undertaking.
They have Amy fucking Adams. Amy Adams, of all people, as their Lois Lane. And they're just, like, since BVS, they were like, oh, she's not important anymore.
No, I just cannot believe that they dare to treat Amy Adams like shit. She's such a well-regarded actor. She has so many accolades. She does so well. It's like an absolute miracle that, they get her on these movies. And they just throw her away. They just, stomp on her character and don't tell her. Same as all the actors in this universe. It's like you have so many good actors and, and they've put in their own time and effort and their work into this movie, and then you just stomp all over it and you don't tell them and you expect them to promote it. Like, what? It's like,
honestly, I don't think that Zach leaving was the reason Ben left. I think Ben left because he was fucking humiliated. Honestly.
Yeah.
Again. Like, the director promised him something beautiful, and the studio screwed him over. It happened with Daredevil, and now it's happening again. It happened to him exactly like it happened before, and I think that's the real reason he left. I don't think it has anything to do with... I think it might have some to do with Snyder, because he knows Zach, and he knows Zach is gonna, like, actually have his back. But I don't think that Ben was fired. I think Ben was like, fuck you guys, when he saw the fucking cut of Justice League. Like... That's humiliating. There was nothing dignified about that film. Like, he was a joke to them.
No, honestly, as disappointed as I am, I'm actually kind of annoyed that, like, all the actors didn't leave just out of sheer protest. Because it's just so bad. It's like, as an artist, how could you, as someone who's an artist, like, how could you stand by that? How could you let yourself be subjected to that kind of disrespect, that level of, like, complete humiliation, professional humiliation?
Like, honestly, I see why Ezra and Ray stuck in there so long to see if they could make it work, but Ezra should have walked after the whole thing with his first director. He really should. Like, and that's the thing. I mean, like, hindsight is 20/20. I wouldn't have advised him to walk at that point, but, like, now seeing what happened, I absolutely think Ezra should have walked. And maybe that has more to do with his other relationships with Warner Brothers, because he's part of the Harry Potter universe right now, but, like, he should have, like, he could have had the dignity to just get the fuck out of there, like.
Yeah, I think with Ray, I don't think Ray really had a choice, because this was kind of his first major film, and he kind of didn't want to ruin the chance to be able to be part of a possible Cyborg film. Well,
for sure.
Before they
blame him
canceled.
at all. I don't blame him at all, but I'm just saying, like, the level of absolute... It is just so awful, like, how badly they disrespected the actors, the people who cared about this movie at all, the people who have credits on this movie, when all of their work has essentially just been destroyed and removed from the final product. Like, wouldn't it just be better to just, remove so many people, remove Zack Snyder if you're gonna completely stop on his business? Like, that's the awful thing, It's like, this movie clearly isn't Zack's at all. To the point that, he throws out something and we completely don't know where it's from or what the context is. It's so completely changed. And yet, he's still billed as the director. And,
what's incredible is we have all these actors standing behind a director, like a bunch of actors getting ready to line up behind a fucking director and put their jobs on the line because he made some fucking pedophile jokes. But we don't have the ability to get a cast of actors to stand behind a director and be like, hey, and based on a project that negatively affects their careers, that negatively affects their artistic performance, that definitely is embarrassing in public, that's going to affect the bottom line of their paychecks because the fucking movie isn't doing well at all and it was never going to do well. All of that shit, we can't get a cast to just get up and be like, hey, this is wrong, let's talk about it with a studio, publicly. And that's the thing. That's why we gotta knock out these fucking NDAs, and we have to talk about this code of silence that we have for creatives in the industry that does nothing but protect the fucking studios and protect people who are abusing people. It's part of the conversation. It's part of the Me Too conversation. It's part of all of that, because not only actual abuses are getting covered up, but also studios are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want because someone signed a fucking piece of paper at the beginning of this project that they weren't going to talk about anything associated with it. Garbage. Absolutely ridiculous. The lack of transparency is absolutely part of the Snyder Cut movement, and we should absolutely be talking about that lack of transparency. We should be talking about a lot more instead of just spamming comments on Twitter and just trying to wear everybody out about this. We can't wear them down, but we could make an effort to change the conversation. We could make an effort to talk about how this happened to Zack and how we can have a system of studios and comic book films that allowed this to happen to Zack. And that's the thing that really matters to me. We need to protect future people from this. We need to make sure that every once in a while we can actually get a superhero movie that moves the genre forward 10 inches. That's not much to ask. But apparently, we have a bunch of studios who are invested in us never doing that ever again. And that's scary.
Yeah, it really is. And that's the saddest thing is that, unless the Snyder Cut ever comes out, we'll never really know how badly Warner Brothers treated Zack and the cast. Because I imagine those NDAs are probably you will never ever speak of this ever, and it will never come out. It's so ridiculous that
which is wild. People should be allowed to speak on their professional experience, especially if you're talking 5-10 years down the road. Either these NDAs expire or they're totally immoral.
Honestly, I can't wait for the day though that I would just love to hear Ben and Amy just go off on Warner Brothers and how badly they treated them. Have one of those actor on actor things, or just be the two of them shitting on Warner Brothers.
It would be super amazing because I bet Ben would whip Amy up.
I imagine him going "Come on, Amy, you know how they treat us. Come on, just be livid."
And Amy's just "Oh, it was, I've had worse experiences," and he just needles her until she's finally, "Well, I'm not working for Warner Brothers, and I think that speaks for itself.
Oh my
But
god.
Ben will just be like, nah, come on, just say it. Just say what you really feel. Because if you don't, I will. Because it's basically going to be Ben. Because you know how Ben is when it comes to stuff like that.
Well, we all heard his commentary track on Armageddon, so I just want that. I want that on Justice League. I want just him to get like more and more fucking frustrated. Like, when do he should just make an industry out of that shit. Like his own commentary tracks, upload them on fucking YouTube, sync them up with the movie, and you know what Ben Affleck feels about his roles now. Congratulations.
That Armageddon track is so hilarious. Like, they literally record the studio let him record that, and we're just like, you know, he's kind of shitting on our movie, but it's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, and that Armageddon track, have you guys heard it? Because obviously Danielle has, but it's honestly it's one of the funniest fucking things that Ben's ever done.
Yeah, I saw it.
Like, it's. First of all, we all kind of know how Michael Bay is a director, but like the plot of Armageddon is like you're training these drillers to be astronauts. So it's like even Ben's like, well, wouldn't you just train astronauts to be drillers? And he's like, Ben, just shut the fuck up. So fucking funny. That's why like letting Ben be livid and be 100% honest with how he feels is honestly like the best thing like ever as far as like his opinions on films go. Like I would just love to hear what he has to say about Warner Brothers.
By the way, guys, before we start the podcast, I wanted to bring up the interview that was recently with Zack Snyder from Comic Book Debate.
Yes, that's from a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing interview. I loved every word he said there. It's like his mind is amazing, and especially.
This just in. Not
Did you hear?
News, but I would die for Zack Snyder.
But did you hear what he said about Lois, though?
Yes.
Yes.
It was one of my most favorite things about how she's like a pivotal part of Superman's story. Like, you can't make a Superman story without Lois Lane. And apparently, as we can see, Warner Brothers doesn't think like that. They treat Lois Lane like MCU treated Jane Foster, pretty much.
It's the same thing. The idea of a primarily romantic hero scares the shit out of them because they are only pandering to misogynist garbage fanboys, and that's the only people they want approval from. And it just makes me feel like the people in charge are just insecure fuckboys who don't have an identity of their own because they need these dudes to like pat them on the back and be like, yeah, bro, you did an amazing Superman film. Like, fuck you. Like, who cares what they think about a Superman film? Guess who's putting down the money? Those guys don't even go see the fucking Superman film on opening night. They're not there. They don't give a shit. Like, stop. Like, what we need to do, we need a large part of the fandom to stop pretending that they're Superman fans and let the actual Superman fans enjoy Superman the way that Superman is meant to be. Like, stop pretending that you enjoy Superman so that you can control whatever masculinity you think is threatening you about him, because that's exactly what's happening. They're just trying to pretend like hypermasculine Superman is exactly what's in the comic books because they're so afraid that what's actually in the comic books is going to go mainstream, and then their particular brand of masculinity is going to go out of fashion, and it fucking should, because it's Stone Age. It's ridiculous. Like, there's absolutely no excuse to be acting the way that the vast majority of the DC fandom does.
Like, honestly, like hardcore quote unquote DC fans are honestly some of the worst people on the planet. Like, the way they treat women, the way they treat people of color, it's baffling. I think that's why the way they treat women, like, how could you cannot call yourself a Superman fan and be a piece of shit. You just can't. Like, how can you love what that character stands for and be everything he would be against? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I learned it firsthand. There was that stupid DC app that they tried to do a couple years ago or something, where they got everybody on message boards together, and it was the giantest shit show ever. Like, it was just like a giant parade of misogyny and homophobia and racism, and it was like, oh good, they're all interacting. This seems like a good idea. And then like just people just trying to survive on that fucking app. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, it's too high of a price to pay to be a DC fan. And at that point, that's the thing that should alarm DC. That's the thing that should scare the shit out of DC, which is that there are people who are quitting being DC fans because the price is too high, because they're surrounded by people who don't respect their humanity, because they just can't take the homophobia and the bigotry and the racism and the misogyny anymore. And like, DC is just still like, oh, well, I guess Frank Miller's gonna make a fucking Superman book, so cool. These guys are just super happy. Okay, but these guys eventually will die. Who the fuck are they gonna pass on? Who the fuck is gonna pay for your product at that point? Like, you're alienating the most viable growing audience, and then you're like, oh, why is it so hard to sell comics? Why is the comic industry going under? Well, because you're applying Stone Age principles to shit, and eventually that shit's gonna die out. Eventually, you're gonna stop being able to pull those guys. I mean, you know, Marvel can give them that too, but Marvel also gives other people other shit. Like, that's the thing. Marvel plays the balance game. So you can either play the balance game the same way they do, or you can cut it the fuck out and actually tap into a market that's completely untapped. You can tap into a market of people who have been marginalized in this industry, in this medium for years, and take all their fucking money, because all I'm asking you to do is just take my goddamn dollars. But you guys haven't put out anything worth buying in like 10 years. What the fuck, dudes? Come on. Help you. I've bought one comic in the last 10 years. One contemporary comic in the last 10 years. My collection of 90s comics is immense. My collection of modern comics, I own one comic. Actually, I bought two comics. The same comic twice for two different covers. That's what I did.
Like, honestly, and here's the thing, like, when I just throw up comics for a while, because I just got so far behind them, like, well, the new 52 doesn't really interest me anymore, I'm kind of over it. And then...
Wait, I can't hear you guys.
I can't hear you, Nick.
Oh, wait, hold on, because my daughter's asleep on the couch, I'm gonna move my thing. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I hadn't collected comics for a while. Because, like, it was, like the new 52 was still going on, and I was just kind of over it, and then, like, I was tired of paying for comics that really weren't worth the money I was paying for, so I'm like, you know, I'm just kind of over it. But then, they brought back one of the best Superman writers ever in Dan Jurgens, and he was doing good quality work. Like, he let Superman be married, he let Superman have a son, he let Superman be a dad, like, all these amazing things that move the character forward. And DC's like, you know what? No. And then they're going back to what made the character so unlikable for so long, and that they're just focusing on the fact that he's like the big red and blue Boy Scout. Like, no, that was never the point of Superman. If you go back to the Action Comics #1, that was never what the character was about. He was it's so funny, these people own the rights to the characters that they don't even understand, and it makes me so mad.
It's like, everyone writes Superman as Superman, but no one writes him as just Clark Kent.
Or I feel like they write who they think Superman is, and they don't understand who actually Superman is.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, guys who saves cats from trees. Oh, guy who's big and muscular. Yeah. That's it.
Every single time that you have someone take on Superman for the first time, you get to listen to their stupid ideas. Like, they always do a fucking interview beforehand where they're like, yeah, Superman is about like purity, and Superman's about always doing the right thing, no matter if that right thing is, like.
So is he a Christian virgin, or like what is that? What does that mean?
And it's like like basically they're like Superman is this great, big, tall farm boy virgin from the South for some reason because I don't know where fucking Kansas is, who is a Republican and a patriot and like
Navy.
Stand in front of
He's a
American
Navy SEAL
flags
now.
with Eagle. And I'm like, who the fuck are you talking about? Like, what is going on right now? Like, how do you get hired to write Superman, give this interview, and not have DC be like, dude, we're gonna take that back. Can you just hand us, like, that's not. I'm gonna have to ask you to give me your pen. That's not what's going on here. Sorry. Like, that's the exact reaction they should have to these fucking interviews. They should read them and be like, oh no, like, shit. Like, this dude doesn't know the first thing about Superman, and we were just like, hey, seems like you can use a pen and move it up and down. Could you write Superman? Like, no, guys. Like, apparently it's super hard. I don't think it's hard. I think it's absolutely super easy to write a Superman story that's compelling. But I think first you have to kind of understand who the fuck Superman is, and that takes 20 minutes of research, which these guys don't do because they don't have to. They keep getting hired. Frank Miller doesn't know who the fuck Superman is, and hasn't for decades. He wrote an entire comic book about how he doesn't know who the fuck Superman is. He defined the dudes who don't know who the fuck Superman is for generations.
He defined who Batman is.
Yeah, the dudes who are standing in front of the dudes who are like, yeah, Superman is like this police guy who's standing in front of a American flag with a fucking eagle. Like, they read one comic. I can tell you which comic they read. I mean, they know one comic, and it's a Frank Miller fucking comic. Like, why? The one guy who made every dude in the entire world think that he understood Superman by reading one fucking comic is the guy you're gonna hire to write Superman's new origin story? Jesus fuck, what the hell? What are you doing? Like,
Well,
honestly, Danielle, I love when you get livid like this. It's honestly one of the reasons why I love this podcast.
We're in the bad place, you guys. We're in the bad place. I just can't, anymore. I just... I can't. Like, that's the thing. Is the reason I kind of was like, okay, maybe I'll do this today, maybe I won't, was because I was like, I don't know if I can do this without talking about comics the whole goddamn time, because I'm so mad about comics. Oh my god. I'm livid about comics. I can't. I think DC is just beyond help. It's like fucking over. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
yeah, it's exhausting.
We need the trademark on Superman to expire so that I can write my fucking Supergirl novel. Like, Jesus Christ, I just want a Supergirl novel. Fuck you.
That's what honestly, I told Amy this, and she like rolls her eyes every time I say it. But I say, like, if we ever win the lottery, I become like a billionaire or something, I am buying the rights to use DC from Warner Brothers and like firing everyone editorially who's working on DC right now, and hiring people who actually know the work and how to do it, and actually who know these characters.
Oh my god. Should that ever happen, you need to record every single firing so that I can enjoy the schadenfreude, because I'm going to be like, I'm every single birthday I have from then on out, we're going to do like a professional viewing of those videos. Just watching them like break down or whatever they do, and just being like, yeah, that's how it feels. That's how it feels, dickhead. Right there.
And you know, it's exhausting to be a DC fan, especially because it starts good and then somehow it gets fucked up entirely. Like, we had Man of Steel, we had Batman v Superman, and then somehow Justice League happened. In DC we had DC Rebirth Initiation, started by Jeff Jones, and we had Dan Jurgens on Superman, and then somehow Bendis happened. Like, how do you go from top to the very, very bottom of the hole?
At this point, you're not even at the bottom. You're literally you're underground in the sewers at this point. That's where we are with comics right now.
I think it's reversed, though. That's the thing. I think it's somehow Man of Steel and BVS happened, and then DC did exactly what it always fucking does, and what we can expect, and what can be relied upon to do. So, that's the thing. Is for me, I'm just sitting around being like, holy shit, I can't believe they let Dan Jurgens write Superman for 30 seconds. Even though he wrote the most successful Superman book that basically fucking revived the franchise in the 90s. I can't believe that they're gonna, let Greg Rucka write a Lois Lane story, even though it's surrounded by stupid misogynist shit, and that, everybody who's a fucking asshole in the industry is writing Superman right now. We finally got a fucking sexual abuser out of the offices, and they're not taking advantage of that situation at all by, I don't know, hiring a single fucking goddamn woman? No? Oh, okay, I see how it is. So he was an excuse, is what I'm hearing.
It's tough.
Yeah, see, guys, this is why we're doing Bitter Geeks.
It's the most accurate description of us at this point. We're being disingenuous if we're calling ourselves DC Film Podcast, because we're just here to yell.
Really,
and groan.
Yeah.
It's like we're upset 24 hours now about DC.
Okay, look, I don't quite like to spread cynicism. It's a whole popular trend now that you have to criticize everything and be miserable all the time to be cool. But no, because I wouldn't want to do that normally. But in the state of where things are just so genuinely bad, people need catharsis, and not just being cynically detached, oh yeah, everything sucks, there's no point caring. It's no, I care a whole lot, and I derive so much joy from these things, and it makes me so angry that people are letting me have this, I don't want to be negative, but when there's so much to be negative about and so little to celebrate, we want to highlight the good things and we want to call out the bad things, because I hope that in 5 or 10 or 20 years I can look back on this and be wow, I was angry and things are better now, thank God. I just hope. Because right now I'm just filled with rage all the time whenever I try to think about anything that I like.
This is the thing, too, though, is that there's a difference. I agree with that. There's a difference between, that bitter cynicism where you're just sort of well, everything sucks, so why try? And, what we do regularly, because I feel if we just got together and we were just yeah, everything's terrible, this sucks, this sucks, and this sucks, and this sucks, and just make a long list of things that suck. I think that would be... there's no energy to that. That's just a self-defeating cycle. It just shuts down conversation. But when you're saying this sucks, this is why, here's how it could be better, you guys had better and you fucking screwed it, what's your problem, how could this have happened, we have a totally different energy, we have that energy where we're not anti-caring. And that's the thing that keeps me here, is that we as a group, we're not oh well, you shouldn't care about this and then you wouldn't get so hurt. We're well, we're continuing to be suckered in by these fuckers.
Yep.
And we're
Hope and optimism.
Yes, we're gonna continue to get our hearts broken for the rest of our lives. Isn't it great to be a DC fan? Ha ha ha, let's all die.
Well, we'll be first to the party when things finally get better.
For real though. That's the thing, is that we've celebrated successes on this place too, on this podcast too, and I think that's what's beautiful about it. Is when
the biggest damn success is the Birds of Prey. It's Birds of Prey. Everything about the Birds of Prey is good. I am as a whole ass bisexual myself.
I'm afraid.
Yeah. No, I have a healthy amount of fear.
Just because DC's doing such a bad job right now. Yeah.
I just want to be so happy because when I see Harley's outfit, I feel so happy and so full of hope.
Look, the fact that the Birds of Prey movie is getting made at all is a triumph. And even if it were the worst piece of shit in the history of anything, and even if it got fucked over like Justice League did, it would still be a triumph. Because getting that shit made in the first place is so important.
It's a female cast, it's a female crew, female director. Like, even if this movie ends up sucking, I'm gonna like squeeze every bit of enjoyment I can out of it.
And it's not overwhelmingly white. Like, that's the thing. It's an actual feminist project because it's actually including women of color. Hopefully it's including non-straight women. Hopefully, hopefully we don't have a Harley Quinn movie with some background characters. Hopefully it's a true ensemble. Like it has so much potential to be like a true feminist comic book film. Honestly, I love Into the Spider-Verse and I always will, but I hope in terms of feminism that it fucking knocks Into the Spider-Verse out of the park. Like I think that it should just be like if it could blow everything else off the list to the point where there's no point in having a list anymore, that would be ideal.
But wait, isn't Captain Marvel on that list too?
No, not even remotely. There's no feminism in that film. There's no feminism in that film. There is fominism in that film, and I don't want that shit. No. Like, no, there's nothing more harmful to feminism. Like, honestly, Age of Ultron is more feminist than Captain Marvel.
No.
No.
Okay, see, I have a lot of problems with Captain Marvel, but that's where I cross the line, Danielle.
It's not. It's the thing is that I think that it's more harmful to pretend to be feminist than to be openly misogynist, and I've been feeling that way for a long time because, like, here's the thing, like, people are pacified by this. People think that the fight is over. People are like, oh yeah, we got that superhero movie with a leading lady, so now we don't need to try anymore. And it's like, that's the thing. Now we don't think we need to try anymore. Like,
no, here's the thing, like the bar.
Nothing. The studios are like, oh, the feminists are happy. We're gonna keep it right here at this extremely fucking low bar, and just include some women.
And that's the thing. And like, obviously, I'm a straight white male, so my point of view, like, no one really cares at the end of the day on subjects like this. But like, it seems like people only cared about this movie because it had a woman who had a guy tell her to smile once or twice. And everyone's like, yes, that's feminism.
Honestly, their whole fixation on that scene is like the craziest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. I like don't understand what the hell is going on. I can't even explain it. Like, it just seems like it was like a scene of like, oh my god, yes, that happens to us. So this is a perfect example of feminism. It doesn't happen that way though. I'm not often wearing a scuba suit on the street, trying to find, something on a distant fucking planet. And then some dude is like, hey, do you need help? And I'm like, that's the most offensive thing I've ever heard. And then I proceed to kick his ass. Like, nope, never happened to me. Not once. But, like, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I don't think it was an honest moment. I don't think it was an honest telegraphing of that. And I also think that you can't insert non-patriarchy characters into the patriarchy and have them react like they have grown up in the patriarchy. Like, there's nothing openly offensive outside of the context of cultural resonance about saying, hey, could you smile for me? That's like a weird-ass thing to say to a stranger. It really is. It's a weird-ass thing. But there's nothing menacing about it, except that unless you're inside of a culture where women are valued based on their physical appearance and men feel entitled to them. Unless you know that, unless that's the background radiation of your life, then some dude walking up to you and being like, hey, why don't you smile? Is like, do you want a list of reasons, Drude? Like, what's happening right now? Like this is an awkward moment for both of us. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's just like a stupid, weird thing that happened to you. And that's the thing. Like they don't commit to Carol as a character. They don't know who the fuck she is, and they don't care. Like, that's the thing. If they commit to Carol as a character, they have to admit that scene didn't make any goddamn sense. Like, she's being approached by a strange human on a planet that she's never been to, and he's like, hey, like, he's essentially just bugging her, and she's like, why are people on this planet annoying? And then her reaction to why are people on this planet annoying, like, that could have been a 6-year-old for all we, that could have been a 6-year-old. You know? Her reaction to why are people on this planet annoying is to brutalize a dude and steal his property? I guess. Okay. But, like, what does that tell me about her? What does that tell me about Carol? Nothing. There's no character there.
Yeah. She also has no love interest, so that's another win for feminism, as they say. I'm using quotations. I mean, people are attacking Wonder Woman 2 for being a romantic movie, as the rumors say.
Like, that's the thing, like, again, like, it's like, take what I say with a grain of salt, but, like, just because something is romantic doesn't make it not feminist, right?
Well, this is what they're being taught, and what they're being taught is actually a very patriarchal ideal, which is that things that girls like are bad. That's it. That's like, it's just another version of women are bad. And they're just applying it, and they're saying it's feminist, when actually it's the exact opposite. Like, you can't hate femme things arbitrarily. You can't be like, well, romance is bad, and flowers are bad, and dresses are bad, and all these things are bad. And you're like, and we're like, okay, that seems like a really random list. Why? Why do you think those things are bad? And, like, there's no correlation except that women like them. So we're just devaluing a certain type of woman because there are bunches of women who don't like those things. But we're saying, like, oh, well, because these women don't like these things, these women are better than the other women. So we're already just creating another false hierarchy here. And the reality is that, like, 10 years ago, the exact opposite hierarchy existed. Both hierarchies are bad. You don't need to rank women. There's no purpose to it. Nobody needs to do that. Nobody was like, hey, what do we do if we don't know which women are better than other women? You know, like, nobody does that with dudes. Dudes are allowed to just, like, you know, big pool of dudes. As long as they don't have any differing, you know, marginalized characteristics, dudes can be dudes. We don't need to be like, oh, well. It's just nonsense. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's just like, it's a perversion of this whole idea of feminism, and it's so ridiculously upsetting to see it go mainstream, because it's just teaching a generation of girls and women to hate each other again. Like, it's just doing the patriarchy's work. And that's what the MCU fans are doing right now. They're doing the patriarchy's work. That's what Captain Marvel does, is do the patriarchy's work.
God, I cannot wait to go off on Captain Marvel, though, like, in general.
Now that we're totally off base, what else were we going to talk about in this podcast?
Robert Pattinson. Let's finally delve into that.
Speaking of feminism, returning back to Zack Snyder's interview, he had such a beautiful view on all this stuff. Like, I like how he explained how women are heroic by nature. I really love that part of his interview. But how could Warner Brothers lose such a director? It's still beyond me.
It's sad. The whole situation is just really fucking sad.
I actually got a copy of what he said about Lois. Basically, he said she doesn't need Superman or Clark. The fact that Clark likes her makes him smarter, cooler, and better. The more badass Lois is, the better Clark gets. They're an amazing duo who needs each other, but Clark needs her more. You need Lois for a better story.
Perfect.
Mic fucking dropped.
Which is basically true. You can't really have a good Superman story without Lois being as amazing as she is. Because she's the one who carries most of the weight for Clark to be human.
I mean,
I just love that his answer is like, why is Superman cool? It's because he likes Lois Lane.
Basically.
Like, that's, like, yeah, actually. That is the only thing that makes, I mean, in reality, that's the only thing that makes Clark Kent cool. Because it symbolizes everything that's like good and pure about him, and everything that makes him into a powerful force for justice. Like, he doesn't even tap into that part of himself completely until he looks Lois in the eye and he's like, yeah, that. I want to be that, and I want to date that. And like maybe that's why my bisexual ass like really relates to Clark Kent, because like that's the way I'm attracted to women primarily. I'm like, yes, I would not sure if I want to kiss you or if I want to be you. Both maybe. Cool. You know, like, and that's like the thing is that like he just sort of like goes there and he's like, yes, okay. Here's the model I can work from. I'm gonna be Lois Lane, and also Lois Lane, please marry me. Today.
I mean, the Smallville became so much better once Lois appeared. She was over the top there. Eric Durance was amazing.
I mean, he was kind of like he was a sweet but kind of like limp noodly character before she came along. Like, you don't see Clark emerge. He's just sort of like in Smallville, he's just sort of like, I mean, really, he's just like bouncing back and forth between extremes and trying to figure out, like, you know, who everyone wants him to be. And then all of a sudden, Lois comes along and he's like, oh shit, I think I just figured out who I want me to be. And that's a beautiful moment in anybody's life.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I'm rewatching Smallville since, like, for the first time ever. I haven't watched it in its entirety since I watched it in its entirety for the first time. So I'm watching it and like I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would, because I remember like as a kid I'm like, oh, I kind of like this, but like a lot of things I feel like as an adult I'm like, oh, maybe I won't like this as much. I still pretty enjoy it for the most part, but oh my god, fucking Chloe, how did I ever like her? Like, Allison Mack sexual cult drama aside, God, Chloe is so unbearable to watch on screen. Oh my god. Like, and I've tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, and then like, it's weird because I remember like as a kid, like, and watching the show the first time around, I'm like, you know, I really like Chloe. Like, I think she's a good character. I like having her around, but like these first couple of seasons I'm watching, I'm like, oh my god, like, why did anyone want to watch this character? Yeah, so those are my thoughts on that real quickly. But yeah, so before we end things, there is obviously one big DC news I feel like we should at least address before we officially sign off. Robert Pattinson is Batman.
Oh yeah.
Guys, this is what I'm here for. Are you joking? Oh my god. I love. Okay. Sorry for disruption.
No, you know what, Gene? You can go ahead and head the first rounds on this one. Go right ahead.
Oh my god. Okay, guys. Y'all, the thing about Robert Pattinson is that, yeah, he's a Twilight pretty boy or whatever, but he's also, like, really well known in, like, the indie movie community for doing really well. And, like, the thing is, he is the perfect casting. I'm so, like, people are angry or whatever, right? They're like, oh no, why would you cast Robert Pattinson? And like, most of y'all, I feel like, are sort of okay about him. But he is the perfect casting, because think about it, you know, like, this reaction of like, imagine like being in Gotham and like, and finding out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Like, it would be like the angry man, nerd, boy person's reactions would be exactly the same. It'd just be like, oh, it's this like rich, pretty boy that all the girls like and all the models follow around. That's Batman? Are you joking? And that is the exact kind of disbelief that would be absolutely perfect for Bruce Wayne, and that's what I'm here for, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll pass. Oh my god.
All right, I really do want to actually talk about this, but I gotta go.
No.
I will get back to you guys in chat later. I'm super sorry to short the podcast like this, because I have so much to say about Robert Pattinson and so many terrible jokes to make. But I gotta get called into work because today is the worst day of the year at my job. I love you guys. Again, my name is Danielle, and I'm a Social Justice League on Tumblr and the Bravest Heart on Twitter, and have an awesome conversation about Robert Pattinson. Bye.
Bye, Danielle.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay, but like for real though, Robert Pattinson, vampires equals bats equals Robert Pattinson equals Batman. Come on. Like this casting choice was fucking inspired.
Yeah, when I first heard that it was going to be Robert Pattinson, like, I think it was back when, there was still word as to who was going to be cast as Batman. And when I saw that Robert Pattinson was one of the choices, I was like, yes, perfect casting right there. Why I say this is because, like of all the actors that I could have, out of all the actors they chose, I felt like when they said Robert Pattinson, at first I was like, really, Robert Pattinson? But then I looked at him again and I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, Robert Pattinson's definitely going to be Batman. And it makes sense too because, I don't know, something about the way Robert Pattinson looks, his expressions, his face, that demeanor. If you were to tell me that he was going to be Batman, I would have been like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I don't know how to say.
Edward Cullen bad boy, sparky bad boy.
It's and people are complaining about it, saying, "Oh God, we got the edgy vampire goth boy to be Batman." And it's I'm sorry to burst your bubbles, guys, but that's pretty much Bruce Wayne to a edgy, gothy emo boy who dresses up as a bat persona every night.
You're right, and you should say it, and you should say it again.
Alright, so when I first found out, obviously, it was kind of announced, he was in the running for a while, so, I had a feeling it was probably going to end up being him. And so, obviously, when it was announced, I wasn't surprised. As far as, the news itself, I'm still bitter about Ben and that whole situation, so it's hard for me to find excitement for Robert under these circumstances. Nothing against him. I honestly believe he will do a great job as Batman. He might be one of the best Batman we've seen. It's just under the circumstances in which he's being Batman. Oh, you have something to say, Emily? Again, under these circumstances, it's just I can't find the excitement for this Batman movie at all. And again, nothing against Robert Pattinson at all. I think he's gonna kick ass. I think he's a great choice. Anyone who says that he's not, really hasn't seen anything of his other than Twilight. I haven't seen anything of his really other than Harry Potter. I've never even watched any of the Twilight movies. But I tend to trust the people who have said, yeah, exactly that. I trust the people who have said that he's been great in all these other indie movies, and I believe those people. So when everyone else says he's a great actor, I'm like, you know what? I believe him. So yeah, if he's a good actor, that's all I can ask for Batman. But again, if this was who we were gonna have as Batman from the get-go, if Zack Snyder had casted Robert Pattinson as Batman, I would have been just as excited as if Ben was cast. Personally,
Zack said he was really happy that Robert Pattinson was Batman. I think that's what he reacted to.
Yeah. Of course, I don't think Zack would be like, you know what, fuck Robert Pattinson. He's never gonna be like that. But that is nice that he at least has the support there. But again, it's just the fact that this movie is being made under the pretense they're basically Warner Brothers was misleading us for months, if not years, saying, "Oh, Ben might be in this movie. This might still be connected to the DCEU," and now they're basically saying, "Oh, well, this is basically a reboot entirely and not really connected to the DCEU." And it's like, well, why did you lie to us for that long? Just tell us straight up if it's not going to be part of the DCEU and you're rebooting from the beginning. And that's the thing, when they when they brought in Matt Reeves to be the director, apparently after Robert was cast, it came out, the plan was always to reboot and not have Ben. So it's like, just tell us that from the beginning, so we can at least start with a clean slate, so that way I can have the time to get... If they had told us this in 2017, when Matt Reeves was announced to be the director, I would be a lot more happy. I would be, you know what, like, I've had 2 years to get over it, I can get over it. Like, I could be excited. But now it's like, because they've been lying to us for like 2.5 years, and it's like, well, why am I going to get excited for this movie you've been lying to us about for this long? And you've already been lying to us about all this other shit going on, so why should I trust you? Yeah, I know, Emily.
Honestly,
it's very upsetting.
Like, Nick. Go, Emily! Say it, Em. Okay. She's right.
Okay, go off, sweetie.
Okay. Oh my.
I am on the same page as Nick. After everything that happened with Ben, it's hard to get excited about another Batman, especially since it's another reboot, which is not to my liking, because we just recently, so to say, got new Batman as Ben Affleck, and now we're getting another Batman so soon. Maybe if Justice League came out the way it was supposed to be, I would have been, I don't know, more okay with Robert Pattinson as the new Batman, but after everything that happened, it's hard to get excited about DC in general. But I'm happy that he's getting he's taken a part in such a huge universe and becomes part of such a huge fandom I am just glad that he will get the part of one of the best characters in fiction.
Yeah, I think. I think for me, because I was really looking forward to seeing, a Batman who is, much older, who's been through the grime, who, knows his way around stuff. I would have loved to have seen that version of Batman be portrayed, on screen without having to be reminded of, Dark Knight Returns. Like, to just have this Batman who was solving crimes, fighting Deathstroke. Apparently Red Hood was going to be in the movie. And just having this amazing action-packed film. Like, I'm happy that the Batman film coming out is going to be more film noir based with detective aspects. But I would have loved to have seen the established Batman, one who's been through everything, who can handle himself well enough and has been, he's been doing this for like decades now. But honestly, the only thing that's really keeping me connected and curious about this new Batman film is the fact that it's Robert Pattinson playing Batman. That's kind of the only thing that's sort of keeping me connected to it.
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest, guys. I don't really know if I'm so much of a DC fan anymore. I'm like a fan of like a handful of DC works. Like, I feel like I've, emotionally distanced myself from immediately jumping onto any new DC project the way I used to. I used to be so excited for every single project that DC announced for their universe, but like right now with like Shazam and then like the Matt Reeves movie and then like Suicide Squad 2, it's like, man, I don't care about that anymore. I care about like Birds of Prey, and I sort of care about like Wonder Woman, A4 and stuff like that. But like, yeah, even with this new Batman movie, like I'm super happy to hear any cool, good news, and I think that the casting of Robert Pattinson is hilarious and perfect, and I love watching adult virgin nerds suffer. But like, I'm just like my expectations have just hit rock bottom. So, you know, when we get a piece of news like this, I just milk it for what it's worth. And I just like squeeze every ounce of enjoyment I can out of it, because I've already been disappointed by this movie. Like you know, originally when it was supposed to be Ben directing with his vision, I had my expectations set up so high, especially like hot off Batman v Superman, and then like firstly like Ben steps down as director, and we get the new director. And then we just see like all the rumors of Ben leaving just happening over and over. And then Ben leaves. And like my expectations are just like non-existent. So, you know, when we get a piece of news that, oh, they actually made a hilariously good choice for their recast of Batman, like, that's great. I'm gonna enjoy this, you know. I'm pleasantly surprised. I don't know. Maybe that's just really cynical of me as well.
No, I see that, and it's just like for me, like it's just, I don't know. I guess I'm just still so bitter towards Warner Brothers and DC for what they did to Ben, that it's just, I personally can't get over that yet, and I don't know if I will. And again, like I really wish all the luck in the world to Robert Pattinson. Like I have faith in him. Anyone who says he's not good for the role is stupid, because I think he's a good fit. Again, but at the same time, I understand and sympathize with the people who feel the same way I do, in which case, like, they feel betrayed because they love Ben's performance so much, and that we've been lied to for so long, and it's just all the drama with how WB has been treating us, and treated Ben, and treated Zach. It's just hard to trust them and to want to be supportive of a movie that kind of goes against what they were setting up to begin with. So,
yeah, I guess for me, WB has kind of, like, I guess with WB for me, like, me being mostly a fan of like Superman related stuff, you know, I've always kept my eye out for a lot of Superman things, and I can tell you the well has pretty much been running dry for quite some time now when it comes to Superman content, especially with you know, with this whole rumor that you know, Supergirl is going to apparently be the new Superman for this new DC universe. And it's like, I'm not against that, I'm happy about that, but at the same time it's like, well, can we get something about Superman? And the only thing we really get is that Supergirl is going to completely reboot the Superman story that we've had so far. At least that's the rumor. And it's like, it feels like WB doesn't really, you know, understand what fans want or what fans are really craving for. But instead, they're just doing this, they're thinking about this from a corporate standpoint, which is never a good way to think if you want your stuff to be successful. And so far, even up to this year, it feels like they've just been shooting themselves in the foot and then questioning why they are bleeding.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I just can't trust WB at this point. I'm so excited for things like, you know, like Shazam 2, like Wonder Woman 84, you know, Birds of Prey, obviously, things like that. I'm excited for those because of the characters and because of the people involved, not because of Warner Brothers at all. Warner Brothers is like so terribly run, and it's just, they're untrustworthy at this point. I'm just so over them. And alright, so I think with that note, and because of my daughter is kind of going crazy over here, I'm gonna have to sign off for now. Before everyone else does, I want to say again, for this being our last episode of the DC Films Podcast before we transition, thank you guys again for being with us through everything and putting up with our rants and anger and every emotion that we've expressed through the last 2 years. Obviously, we're very passionate about these films and these characters and a lot of other subjects as well. And you guys didn't have to take the time to listen to us or even like talk to us about it, but you guys did, and I can't thank you guys enough for doing that and for joining us on this journey, if you will. And hopefully you guys still stick around with us and still listen to us when we do Bitter Geeks. Hopefully there's a lot more stuff that you guys are interested in that we can talk about, like whether it is like the MCU or whether it's like other like TV shows or like Avatar: Last Airbender. I would love to talk more about that.
God, I have a lot of opinions about that. My God.
Me and Gene have some very differing opinions on Avatar and The Legend of Korra. So you'll definitely be checking that out. Seriously, again, before my daughter gets too upset over here, thank you guys again. I really do appreciate everyone listening and everyone here, everyone who has ever been a part of this podcast. So I just want to say thank you and I love you guys.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you too, man.
And tell Emma I love her too because she's adorable.
Thank you, I will. Jean says she loves you, sweetie. Oh, she had a big smile on her face.
Aww.
So on that note, if you guys, for the last time, at least for DC Films Podcast, want to tell everyone where they can find you online?
I am Owlspeed. You can find me mostly on Instagram, Owlspeed.
I'm Jean, I'm Bad Activity on Tumblr, and I'm Cult of Snyder on Twitter, but I'm rarely on there.
I am Greg Conlois on Tumblr and Twitter.
Alright, and then of course you guys can find me at True Man of Steel on Tumblr and Twitter. Follow our Twitter account. I'm going to be changing it to the Bitter Geeks Podcast, so if you guys are currently followers of the DC Films Podcast Twitter account and notice the change, now you know. But you guys will be able to find us there at Bitter Geeks Podcast in the future. Thank you guys again for listening to us for the past 2 years. It means the world to us. And hopefully we'll see you guys when we come back for Bitter Geeks. So until next time, have a good one, everyone. Thank you for joining me.